Hello everyone, it is November 10th here in Estonia, and I'm going to discuss why I think buying land is an excellent ideal if you're a MGTOW guy, no matter the country that you're living in or the city, anywhere. As we know here, owning land is something that many people don't do. It used to be more common, I think, and as cities became more urbanized and more people flocked to the cities, it just became less popular. But I think there's been kind of a renewal of interest in people wanting to buy land for themselves, whether it's in USA, in Europe, Australia, everywhere, Asia. Likewise, it's also going up a lot in price in some of these places, but there are still places where you can buy land for a very good price. Many people here may follow Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist, and he has spoken about excellent real estate deals in Serbia and in Georgia at the moment, if you get your feet on the ground there. And you can find phenomenal plots for a very good price, pending that you're working with a local agent and that you're not solely finding properties on foreign websites. These type of opportunities are something that MGTOW guys should look at, because as we know here, often land goes up a lot in value as more people flock to those countries, and as those countries emerge, it also becomes a lot more expensive. It will probably be less accessible as time goes on. I remember when my parents first moved to the suburbs of Chicago, there was land that people could buy at that time, and it was very reasonable, even for US standards. Most people, of course, didn't want the land, because for many people who haven't worked in agricultural backgrounds or who haven't ever owned land don't understand what to do with it. And they probably don't want to deal with it because, of course, there can be issues that arise and whatnot. The land was very cheap, though. People that did purchase that land in the 1980s, as time went on to current day, the value of that land went up tremendously. And many of the same people that bought the land at that time still own this land. And now much of that land was either bought out by commercial development companies who are building houses, apartments, or it's actually being used for like agricultural purposes or for livestock. This same example can be used anywhere in the world. Unfortunately now, in places like US, land is very expensive. There's almost no place that you're going to find land for a reasonable rate. And that's why I think it's best off now to focus on other markets, whether it is in Eastern Europe, it could be in the Balkans, it could be in Central South America, or in Africa even. There's different markets to look at. Now understand though, there are certain countries where foreign people cannot own land. If you're a person that wasn't born there and doesn't have citizenship, it's not allowed. And I know firsthand, Philippines is one of these type of countries. If you're a foreign person, you can actually own real estate, but you can't own the land. You could have a massive house, a massive apartment building, but not actually own the land. And that's just the policies in that particular country. And this is the same policy in some other countries. So you of course should do the research before moving there and attempting to buy land. There's places, as I mentioned, like in Georgia, where you can find really good deals. And with this land, you'd be able to grow your own food crops. You could raise livestock. You could rent this land to other people. There's many different functions that you could use with the land. And furthermore, you wouldn't be as reliant on a government or on an entity to supply you with all your needs. Because if you have the land, you can often cultivate your own products, own crops, and everything else. You could also employ people. And there's many different things you can do with this land. And that's one of the big advantages of having your own land. This is, I think, something that more people have become more interested in recently, especially with the recent crises that have been occurring, because many people have seen how governments have responded to situations and have realized that there could be food shortages, there could be restrictions, how many products people can buy. Obviously the government, who's not to say that this same mindset could be extended to food products. Obviously, during the Soviet Union, this was a very common situation that there were often food shortages. Of course, during wartime, there's also often food shortages. And there's no doubt in my mind, in the near future, this could also be a big problem in many countries. And that's why being prepared in this way would be really beneficial. Having your own land gives you more access to control your own life. And this is, of course, something really beneficial for landowners, because when you own a property but you don't own the land, there's a lot that you may not control. You could be in an apartment building, and the apartment building could be torn down, and then you don't have the apartment. There's also a lot of other issues that you deal with when you're operating on land that's not yours, but you own property. The same is true, of course, if you're a business owner. You have a business and you, of course, operate your business, but you may not own the land. So you're still always having to pay rent to whoever the owner is. And in some cases, this can be a lot of money. Many people here may not be aware that McDonald's actually makes a very large amount of their profit from the land that McDonald's franchisees lease from the company. The company itself owns the land typically, and then the franchisees actually pay the rent each year to the corporation. And this is actually how McDonald's makes a lot of its profit. It's not just from the profits that each store or each restaurant makes. It's actually from operating as kind of a real estate company. It's really interesting. And this same model actually is utilized by some other fast food restaurants and other industries, actually. Going back, though, to the issue here is that having control of the land gives you a lot more benefit, and you're putting a lot less uncertainty in someone else's hand. For any reason, something obviously could happen, and at the end of the day, if you don't have the land, things could go wrong. You don't have the ability to plant your own crops, to have your own animals. You have a lot more freedom to do what you please. If you need a source of water, if the land encompasses rivers or if there's valleys nearby, if there's some kind of water source that's nearby, of course, you have water here that's very accessible. And this is also something very beneficial. It all goes back to the same theme of having more control in your hands. And this is really what it amounts to. And I think it also gives you both more privacy. You get to live by yourself. You don't have anyone probably nearby. You have a lot more privacy and independence. You truly can do your own thing because it's your land. You probably won't have neighbors nearby. You have a lot more independence to operate as you please, especially if you can pay the land up front. Some of these countries, the land is very reasonable. For like $40,000 or 50,000 euros, you can get a decent sized plot of land. In other places, if you're willing to spend 100,000, 200,000 euros, you could get a real nice plot of land in places like Georgia. And this would just give you a lot of abilities to operate in a way that's very independent. And also in some of these countries, they have good futures ahead of themselves. There's no country that's 100% trustworthy, but when we look at other countries, decisions that have been made, and then we compare these countries that are emerging markets mostly, some of these are very good opportunities. And keep in mind that other guys are probably going to come along and buy these plots of land if you don't. Could very well make a fortune because the very low cost land that people could have bought 100 years ago in America, this same land could be worth millions today, or already was sold off and whoever the owner was made millions of dollars. The other beneficial thing with land is that this is something that can be passed down. And this is another cool thing. If you have any children, any other family members, a brother, you can pass this land on and it can continue on. And if you have any kind of business from it, any way of making profit, then this is also a business that can be passed on. And I think this is a really cool thing about owning land. This is obviously something that you can't always do. Also remember that if you buy land that has a property on it, if you don't like the property, you can always build something else. The cool thing about having your own land is that you own both the property and the land. If you don't like it, you rebuild it. No, at the end of the day, you still own the land, and that's obviously a big benefit that many people don't have nowadays. And of course, you have other benefits. When you buy land in a foreign country, this in itself can grant you easy access to citizenship, or definitely long-term residency in that country. Often if you buy land in some countries, still outright just give you a passport or some kind of long-term residency document. So it's really a beneficial thing if you're looking at moving to a different country. If you can do this, you'll immediately have the residency or the passport, and you then of course have the land. So it's a win-win situation. The country, obviously, regardless of how the country goes, if you decide you don't want the land, if you're in a developing market, the land will likely go up in price. And likewise, you'll probably be able to sell it for at least some profit if you don't want it anymore. Understand that land, of course, has value. And often we can look at currency, money supply, and other products, and value often depreciates very quickly. But land is one of those things I think that holds value much better, especially if you're in an area that's considered a prime area or prime real estate. You will hold value there, and you won't even have to hold currency. This is one of the reasons why Chinese people were buying up a lot of properties in USA and Canada starting 20 to 30 years ago, because it was a way that they could effectively hold value somewhere without needing the cash. The land is the currency, it's the cash, and this is one of the other really beneficial things. If money loses its value, you still have something of high value by having the land. And this is another very beneficial aspect. It's even more valuable than having just the real estate, because often when people have a house or apartment, they're essentially renting the land and then they own the real estate. But if you want to have the full value, you own both the land and the real estate. And this is a really important thing that you have by owning both of these. And there's just so many benefits, honestly, of owning land. Of course, you should have professional appraisal and have a good attorney and other people that can help you make this decision and help you, and also find someone locally that understands the market and can effectively tell you if it's good value land that you're buying. And these are all components that go into this process. Of course, if you go this route, understand that the more front-end work that you put, don't skimp out on the front end, have good people helping you. It'll cost some money, but long-term, you'll end up with a much better piece of property, and that's key here. So go for this if you can. If you have extra cash, any money sitting in the bank, any guy that can do this, I would do it as soon as you can. So give me your feedback, and thank you.